Hello, everyone. We welcome you all to the Kosi River Rejuvenation Summit, a unique summit focusing on the rejuvenation of rivers, not just Kosi. I welcome this particular panel discussion would be focusing on redefining livelihood and ensuring sustainable agriculture ecosystem along the river. And to do the honors, we are joined by stellar speakers from across the ecosystem. Uh, Join me in welcoming a very senior bureaucrat with the Government of India, who is the Additional Secretary and also the Mission Director with the National Water Mission, Ministry of Jal Shakti, Government of India, Shri G. Asok Kumar. Uh, he would be joining us. And I also welcome Mr. Dan Alluf, who's the Counsellor, International Cooperation, Mashav, for the Science and Agriculture Embassy of Israel, New Delhi. Welcome, Mr. Dan Alluf. Ashok sir, welcome. Your camera got switched off. Welcome, G. Ashok Kumar, who's a senior bureaucrat with the Government of India, Ministry of Jal Shakti. He is the Additional Secretary and Mission Director, National Water Mission. And we are also joined by, all the way from UP, Uttar Pradesh, Mr. Indra Sen, who is the Assistant Professor, Department of Earth Sciences, IIT Kanpur. Welcome, Mr. Indra Sen. Namaskar. And we are also joined by Dr. Deepshikha Sharma, who is the Commercial Head for Smart Cities, Water and Environment, CleanTech Trade Council with the Royal Danish Embassy, New Delhi. Welcome, Dr. Deepshikha.
Thank you.
We would also be joined by Apurva, who's a joint magistrate with Ranikhet, Almora soon. Before we move further, let me tell you, we had an amazing inaugural session today for this Kosi River Rejuvenation Summit, Redefining Almora. We had the welcome address by Mr. Nitin Baduria, who is the District Magistrate for Almora, Government of Uttarakhand, is the program chair. And we had a very special video message from the Honorable Chief Minister of Uttarakhand, Mr. Trivendra Singh Rawatji. Later on, we had a keynote address by Mr. UP Singh, who is the Secretary, Ministry of Jal Shakti, and also for Ministry of Drinking Water and Sanitation, Government of India. We were also joined by His Excellency from the Embassy of Israel, Dr. Ron Malka with the New Delhi, and also Dr. R.S. Raval with the GB Pant National Institute of Himalayan Environment, Almora. And also there was a special presentation by Mr. Manoj Goyal, Chief Development Officer, Almora, Government of Uttarakhand. Thank you very much once again for joining us. I would request Ashok sir first to give his initial remarks on this particular session, that is redefining the livelihood and ensuring sustainable agriculture ecosystem along the river.
Good afternoon, everybody. I'm very happy to be associated with this very interesting topic, redefining livelihood and ensuring sustainable agriculture ecosystem along the river. That's a general topic, and very especially enthusiastic and happy to know about the initiative the district magistrate have taken, Nitin Baduria, for river rejuvenation of Kosi River, and also trying to link up reinventing Almora. It's a very, very interesting topic, and these are lifetime opportunities for a collector to do something good for the district. So I appreciate and thank and congratulate Nitin Baduria for taking up this initiative. Everybody knows that river is life, and river can make a lot of difference in the life of people. And traditionally also all civilizations came up in near the river, and the entire human race, actually, civilization started and is still continuing on the river front only. And unfortunately, we in India had been very negligent about rivers. Rivers, the river which we used to river and pray to has has become a dumping ground. Most of the municipalities and the gram panchayats think that this is the best way to uh, get rid of their waste, whether it is sewage or whether it's garbage. They dump it to the river, and the river carries down, and it goes to the nearby town and polluting all the downstream people areas. And on top of it, we also have the problem of less water coming into the rivers, because many rivers have died because of the various issues associated with the rain, water storage, and water conservation. So we in India faces two major problems. One is the pollution in the river, and second is a very existential problem of the river itself. Like our secretary would have told you how the Yamuna in Delhi is not a river because it doesn't flow for 8 months. It's a stagnant sewage water, and then when it rains, the water flows, and the water is in the river for 2 3 months. It causes floods, damages, and goes away. This is the story, recurring story of India, where the rivers are hardly existing in some place, and when it exists during rainy season, it comes out with so much of water that it causes flood and havoc, and the water drains off to the sea. And the next 3 months later, when the drought season comes, people will run for water. So it's a very, very sad story. But India is blessed with a lot of rainfall. India has good water availability. It's a problem that we are not able to manage the water properly. So this is where the National Water Mission comes in. National Water Mission was it's a mission set up as a response to the climate change issues and the water, and it was set up in 2011. And over the years, we have been working for various aspects regarding water. And some of the striking things which we found was that the water use efficiency in India, in agriculture industry, is very low. It's about 30%, 35%. And I'm in the last 2 years doing some study on the various irrigation projects which we have done, the surface irrigation project. We find that the efficiency of those irrigation projects are also very less than anticipated or what we have planned. So actually, the major problem which we now face in India is not because of shortage of water or non-availability of water. It is the proper management of water. That's where we have to focus on. But today's topic is for discussion today is actually on using this water, redefining livelihood and ensuring sustainable agriculture. So that's where the role of National Water Mission and the role of agriculture comes in. See, agriculture in India uses about 89% of the water usage in India. So that means if 100 liters of water is being used in India, 89% goes 89 liters goes for agriculture, and only 11% goes for irrigation for domestic use as well as for industrial purposes. In many other countries, it's industrial use is much more than the agriculture. But in India, unfortunately, we have um, very large usage of water, both groundwater as well as surface water. But the efficiency is very low. It's about 30-35%. And it is, and when we did the study, we found some of the places we have about 20-25% usage. That's a very big challenge which we have to look at it. And second, this actually creates a problem of non-availability of water. Non-availability of water to flow in the district. So many of these rivers have become sewage drains because fresh water doesn't flow into it. A lot of places we have constructed dams to divert the water for agriculture purpose in many of the areas, and and for many places in drinking water purposes also. And the water which comes back to the river, as I said, many places from sewage water or dirty industrial pollution comes here, and the water flowing there is actually sewage or very dirty, polluted water. So this is a huge problem in the country, and then now people have started realizing. I was with the National Ganga Mission earlier in my previous posting, so we were taking up a lot of activities to regenerate the rivers. But now one of the reason why water doesn't flow in the river every time, or perennial flow of water, is because the second and third order rivers, or the first order rivers which actually feeds the rivers, are dying. That's because, again, either there are a lot of encroachments happening there on the small rivulets, and then that those have died away, or the water source, or the channels which bring water to those small rivulets are encroached, and no water comes down. This the problem of river not flowing is actually because the rivers which feed them do not exist, or they are dying. And that's where the Almora, the Kosi River comes in. Kosi River actually is a tributary of river which goes to Ganga, and then Ganga water. Many places we don't have water flowing in Ganga. So if we want Ganga to flow, we want the tributaries to flow. The tributaries should have, if the tributaries has to flow, the rivulets which bring water to it has to flow. That's the whole chain. It's very essential that we have this Avaral Dhara, or the continuous flow of water, and that can be achieved in many ways. So the one of the campaigns which we have done was which is presently being doing in National Water Mission is called Catch the Rain, where it falls, when it falls. Basically, it is to ensure that the water, as I said, lot of water is available. If you look at countries like Israel now, they have much less water available, whereas we have almost 1100 millimeters of rainfall across the country. So it's a huge availability of rainfall. In Uttarakhand, other day we were looking at per capita availability of rainfall. It's about 22,000 liters per day per population. That means 22,000 liters of water is available as per the rainfall statistics per person per day. This is of course statistics. It's not available throughout the day, but then that's the volume of water available. And our requirement is, again, statistically it's only maybe 140, 150 liters per day. So see the amount of water available, and actually I found in many of the villages in Uttarakhand and all, many times they don't have water during summer, and the rivers are dry there, because Nitin was telling us the in the dialogue or district, we have now Namam Ganga has started this National Water Mission. We have started a program called Dialogue with District. Every Saturday, 3:30 to 5:30, we have speaking people from districts speaking upon what they had done for the Catch the Rain campaign, which was started about 3-4 months back. We are requesting people to collect or do some conservation activities which will conserve the water. And Nitin was telling about his efforts to rejuvenate the Kosi River. Appreciate that, and that's where, to revive the small rivulets, we'll have to appropriately catch the rain, and then divert it to either a water storage area, and then slowly release it to the rivers. So this is a very important thing, because over the years we were not bothered about water, and then this water we used to create as a flash flood, come into the river, create a lot of flood back, and then flow down to the sea. We have to make the water flow slowly. Well, as somebody said, no, we have to make this rainwater walk stop, and then store it, and then through the underground aquifers, it should come down to the river, releasing slowly throughout the year. It cannot come on once when the rainfall is very heavy that day. The entire water should not come down to the rivulet and then come to the river and flood it and create havoc and go away. It should be stored at the top. Slowly, the water will through the aquifers will also get released to the rivers, and that water will ensure continuous flow of water. That is where the role of rivulet rejuvenation and river rejuvenation comes in. We have to really look at storing water and then slowly releasing it into the river in the natural process which used to happen before. That's where the Catch the Rain campaign is very important. Catch the Rain campaign, which we are requesting all the states to do this rainwater harvesting structures, either as at the rooftop rainwater harvesting structures as well as compounds. Try to make the water stop, let it sink down slowly to the ground, recharge the ground table, and then that water will slowly get released to the rivers, and then rivers get continuous perennial flow. We also have in one of the action points of the Catch the Rain campaign is removal of encroachments of the water bodies and the channels which bring water to the water bodies. So many places you find that there are water bodies, but it's all encroached upon, so which reduces the volume of the catchment. So the water caught in that. To increase the volume, we have to remove the encroachments from there, probably desilt the tanks, and also ensure that water flows down slowly to that those water bodies. We have to remove the encroachments in that. That's one part of it. Second part of it is the um, this pollution aspect of the river. Pollution because of many sewage and other dirt coming into the river, that is also getting affected. That also has to be addressed. And coming to the livelihood part of it, livelihood part, river is very important for creating livelihood. Tourism is one option. Not only that, the agriculture in that area is dependent. Many places are dependent on the water flowing in the river. But if we can actually do a good water management, sewage treatment plants water can be used for irrigation, and the water we take from the river for irrigation can be substituted. That means there is a trade-off here. You take the water which is rich in nutrients, etc. Treated water from the sewage treatment plants can be actually used for agriculture, and the water actually which they now take for irrigation purposes can be let flow in the river. So there's a lot of water management can be done, happening there. I'm coming to the last point, the irrigation, the livelihood aspect. If water is flowing in the river, lots of things happen. The environment gets better, your health improves. So there are a lot of cost which you spend on treatment or is saved. Fisheries is a great option. Biodiversity improves a lot. Tourism is one great opportunity. Most of these places, because I know I have seen in one district where I work, I developed a tank which was very dirty. We developed it, and it is now acting as a tourist center where nearly 2,000 people come every weekend, and there are about 10 to 12 families who are totally surviving on that water body by either it because of fishery or because of the boat services they provide. So there is a tremendous opportunity of increasing a livelihood using this river. So I once again congratulate Nitin for taking up this topic, and I hope that scientific analysis is done and he learns from various other places where this type of interventions have taken place and be implemented in Almora. The river, Kosi River, will be rejuvenated, and it can also feed to Ganga, and the overall Dhara of Ganga will be retained. So I thank the organizers also for inviting me to this function. Thank you.
Thank you very much, sir, for sharing your great insights with us, and also about the livelihood that can happen along the river. To take the gist from your speech, how important it is, the channels that feed the river and encroachments are hindering the flow of the water in the river. And thank you very much. And of course, we would also be making this summit report that would be coming up. We would be coming up with that summit report with all the best of the minds who are joining us today. And yes, we are also fortunate to be the organizers for the weekly webinar being driven by G. Ashok sir, the Catch the Rain When and Where It Falls, which is happening every week. So now I would request our special guest from the Embassy of Israel, Mr. Dan Alluf, who is a counselor, international cooperation, science and agriculture with the Embassy of Israel, to please put forward his perspective on this topic.
So good afternoon. I hope you can hear me well.
Yes, we can hear you.
Great. So thank you for inviting me as a speaker. And I would actually try to break it down into the following segments. First of all, when we talk about redefining livelihood, when we talk about ensuring sustainability of agriculture, and we try to link it definitely to today's topic of river of Kasi. So in this regard, I think we should look at it separately at the beginning and then see the combination between all of it together. I will start with saying a little bit about Israel. Israel is, unlike most of India, has a very scarce water source. We actually have one lake in Israel, and we have 2 aquifers. This is a water source we need in Israel, but the demand is only growing. It is more than tripled itself since Israel was established, and the need for water pushed for innovations. So the innovations came in a few levels. First of all, policy was put in place, meaning the government took a decision that water is owned by the state and not by the people, but the government has a responsibility to leverage water and enable every user, if it is a farmer for drinking water, a civilian, or industry, the state has a responsibility to supply the water it is owning. And in this regard, a very comprehensive and sustainable ecosystem was established by doing that, because when water was managed by the state from A to Z, from the regulation to the implementation, things were working very much intact. And it seems as government of India with Jal Shakti becoming one ministry overseeing all water-related activities is in the same aspect also in this regard. The second is water sources. As I said, Israel was relying on natural water sources, which is a lake and 2 aquifers. And because this was not sufficient, alternative water sources were generated. So the reuse of water, all the sewage water in Israel, more than 90% are being treated and reused in agriculture. The water from the sea is desalinated and becoming water, drinking water for the civilians. And by this today, half of the water sources in Israel are actually alternative water sources. So we took our destiny in terms of water into our hands. And today, from a state with scarcity of water, we have enough water to any activity that is required. The third part is innovation. Israel is generating a lot of innovation. Maybe the most well-known innovation from Israel is drip irrigation that was invented in the 60s of the previous century. And this is the most efficient water use irrigation method in agriculture. And I will elaborate when I touch agriculture sustainability in a later stage. And additional innovations are, for example, the metering of water or treating of the water in low energy, but in big capacities. So innovation is a big basket that is promoting our water sector in Israel. And number 4 is 2 things that are key, in my opinion, and in water in general. One is the awareness of the people that water is something you need to really take under your consideration as a user, not waste water, respect water. And this is being taught in kindergartens, in schools, and also on the television with advertisement of the government. The other part of the same awareness is pricing. Water is priced in Israel, so when you use water, you pay for it. And as a user, when you pay for something, you value it. So these are the 4 components: policy, generating water, innovation, and awareness. These are the 4 pillars that create the Israeli ecosystem. And when I talk about what Israel and India are doing together, I am representing Mashav, Israel's Agency for International Development Cooperation. I'm based in Delhi, and we are leading the Indo-Israel Agricultural Project together with Government of India and state governments. And we actually look at this sustainability of agriculture, but from the eye of business. So we want to demonstrate agriculture which is implementing Israeli technology and know-how tailored to local conditions, and at the end of the day is actually bringing more profit to the farmer. And for me, more profit to the farmer equals sustainability, because this is what will make the farmers use water efficiently and at the end of the day also profit more. So these are the things that we are doing. We are having this Indo-Israel agricultural project utilized in the form of centers of excellence. We have today 29 fully active centers of excellence across India. And these centers are focusing on horticulture crops. And we are really showing a full value chain from water management, but also propagation of the seedlings and plants until cultivation, best practices, and even post-harvest and marketing linkage. The sustainability, and here I will try to connect it to our summit, the sustainability is coming from the shape of what we do in our centers, which is training farmers in big numbers and in a very applicable way. And now we are looking into expanding from our centers of excellence into villages of excellence. And this is an initiative that started last year and hopefully will be completed by 2024. But already by next year, we will see the first outcome. The villages of excellence will be ecosystems that will withhold three very important layers. One is the infrastructure. So when we talk about the infrastructure of a village of excellence, it is putting the infrastructure of water. So when we have a river, and as Asok Kumar was saying before me, that the river is not flowing in the same way throughout the year, then how do we preserve the water so we do have a water source which is sufficient for agriculture throughout the year? How do we create the infrastructure that keeps the surface water in terms of the availability throughout the year? Moreover, how do we make this surface water piped and become pressurized water so you can use micro irrigation, drip irrigation, sprinkler, and actually use the water efficiently? Infrastructure is also the machinery. It's not water, but if you have water but you are lacking machinery or you are lacking even fertilizers, then you don't give the full complete infrastructure solution that is required. So it actually, in my opinion, important to emphasize that to become sustainable and to create the ecosystem of COSI, we really need to put a comprehensive solution in place. And in this regard, putting the complete infrastructure of water management, fertilizers, machinery, different sensors, maybe even precision agriculture that we have from Israel in India currently. All of this is very important, and this is number one. The second part is capacity building. When you put in place infrastructure, it must be linked to knowledge. And capacity building is the ability to move, transfer knowledge from universities, from our centers of excellence, for example, into the farmers' hands. Train farmers, educate farmers, give them applicable instructions on how to utilize the infrastructure we are putting in place. And putting infrastructure and capacity building together is an amazing game changer from our experience. The third and last component of this ecosystem, in my opinion, is a market linkage. If we want to be sustainable, as I said before, farmers should do good business, should really make a profit. And in order to make a profit, it is not enough to grow the best products in agriculture. You must know who you are selling to. And moreover, you need to choose the best retailer or the best market that you can, that will give you the best price for your product. So in this regard, it is really about the ability to identify the customer, maybe from the customer to reverse engineer and understand what it is you should grow. So you create your best market linkage. After you do this connection, it is putting in place post-harvest market linkage, good transportation, extending the shelf life of your product. All of this will result in the ability to utilize your value chain and profit more. So to conclude, I would say that India is Israel and Israel are doing a lot together. We are going and planning to do even more now and in the near future, and also strategically to the long run. And me as heading the agriculture and water at the Embassy of Israel, and even me as being a farmer back in Israel, I always believe that sustainability is about keeping eye on the ball, is about keeping focus, that how do I utilize the infrastructure, how do I define the right solutions, and how do I make it happen in terms of executing the plan. I hope this is addressing the point of your summit, and I thank you for that time.
Thank you very much, Dan Alluf. Glad to know that you are also an agriculturist back in Israel. Glad to know. And we are glad that there is a strategic partnership between Israel and in India. We also heard this morning from the embassy ambassador of Israel embassy. So thanks for taking us through the four pillars, that is policies, innovations, awareness, and infrastructure. Also about the market linkage with agriculture. That's wonderful. We would also be taking down those inputs in our summit report. Now I would request Dr. Deepshikha Sharma, who is the commercial head, smart cities and water and environment trade council with the Royal Danish Embassy, New Delhi, to please put forward to share her perspective on redefining agriculture along the river.
Thank you. Thank you so much for giving me this opportunity to talk about, how we can do some bit to maybe look into the rejuvenation of Kosi River from both livelihood and sustainable agriculture perspective. Just to give you a bit background about myself, I've been working with the Trade Council Denmark for more than 3 years now, and looking into how we can get Danish technologies in India to mitigate or basically tap the pollution systems which we have in water, and also the non-revenue water and other basically urban water management as well as rural water management. Just to start, and it's really a privilege, or I would say, to be here, and because we have been always hearing about huge rivers systems like Ganges and the major tributary as Yamuna about it. But I think it's very good to have to talk about Kosi river system as well. Not only because it contributes to the other river system, but also because it originates from one of the very eco-fragile areas in India and very eco-sensitive areas. So it is very important to look at from the livelihood as well as from the agriculture viewpoint, I would say. Just to begin with, if we say Denmark is, just to give you an idea, Denmark is being surrounded by water, but still fresh water is very scarce there. And so they depend a lot on groundwater. However, still, I would say the urban water system and the management of the freshwater system as well is very considered to be in the holistic way. As also mentioned by Mr. Dan, I completely synchronize and echo what he was saying about how we should see the mitigation options and how we should go with these 4 pillars. What is very important is that water is treated as actually a scarce commodity. And the tariff system is very, very important, which is worldwide is now, which we have been echoing. And it should also it's a time to rethink in India as well. Just to give an example, what are the major things which we think from, which can bring value is, of course, from the regular treatment options of the wastewater. It is very important to have market evaluation in terms of, how we can improve the water efficiency throughout. Right, so it is very important to have, for example, automatic warning systems, which can give us when Mr. Dan was talking about precision agriculture. I think it is very important to have those warning systems in place because they can help us, in various kind of predictions, in various kind of automatic, data acquisition, which can help and improve the whole efficiency of the water systems. Then it is very important to have decoupling of rainwater. So as also mentioned by Mr. Ashok, that rainwater is abundant in India. It's just that we really need to find a way to tap it. So coupling the freshwater river systems and the rainwater river systems, how we should go about it, and we should also consider it from the holistic viewpoint, in the sustainability viewpoint. That what kind of a interaction can happen. So these are some very few points I would like to mention. Apart from that, I think if we see from the Danish perspective, a triple helix program or the approach is always followed, and it is also followed in India, where we have amalgamation of not only public sector or private sector, but also of research and university. But from a Danish perspective, what I would say I've also learned actually over the years here. Is that there is a quadruple helix, where it is very important to have people's participation. And since water is a subject which directly impacts the livelihood of the people, it is very important to have their perspective into considering while designing any kind of a framework or the approach on rejuvenating, programs, and especially since along the Kosi, there is a lot of focus on tourism as well. So it is directly impacting the people's, I would say, livelihoods. Secondly, from agriculture perspective, I think it is very important to see how we can actually use the freshwater systems or otherwise to have more precise and, advanced technologies imbibed in agriculture system. A small example is this, under the schemes which we have, for example, solar water hydro pumps. Is what is the government of India is also pushing a lot. I think can we look into that? So these are certain technologies and innovation and interventions which can be used. So I personally echo what Mr. Dan has also mentioned, and of course I think it is very, very important to make the not only the in terms of livelihoods or sustainability agriculture, but also in terms of the people residing in that particular area, whether it is a village or it is a small city, to make it more resilient, to make it more water efficient and managing the water, so that we have a very good system, whereas there is hardly any leakages of water, where there is there is water pollution is being mitigated. So because what has been seen is that when not only it's the natural or along the way the pollution enters, but it's also a lot of activities which leads to the polluting the river. So how we can mitigate those I would say pollution levels. So I think there it is very important, not only from the policy perspective, but also to have the latest technologies which should be implemented and needs to be looked into when designing the whole framework. We can definitely get inspired from international, expertise, international technologies, whether it can be Denmark, Israel, and other countries. But I would definitely say that it is very important to have a holistic view of the ecosystem. Not only that, okay, we are just looking at, for example, from the pollution perspective. No, it has to be looked from the both quality as well as quantity perspective. That I would say. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Deepshikha, for taking us through the much needed technology besides the policies and other initiatives. Um, of course, there must be some technology borrowing from the Denmark and also from the Danish embassy. There must some technology. The COSI administration is looking forward for the collaborations. Now we would move on to our next speaker from the IIT Kanpur, who's a professor, Mr. Indra Sen, a professor with the Department of Earth Sciences, IIT Kanpur. Thanks for joining us, Mr. Indra Sen. Please put forward your.
Yeah, I'm just trying to share my screen. Can you see my screen?
Not yet.
One second. Now?
Not yet. Could you find the screen share screen button out there?
Yeah, I can see the share screen button. It says me StreamYard and entire screen.
Yes, yes.
So the StreamYard is not
Just
working.
click on the share screen, and then you can share that particular window or the folder.
Yeah, but that's not even showing me. I don't know why.
The share screen down at the bottom of the screen, you'll find there's a button called share screen.
Yeah, no, I can see that it says that Firefox. Anyway, I think I can just yeah, I think it says some issues. I really don't hold it back. It's showing me that Firefox cannot allow permanent access to your screen. I don't know why is it. Anyway, so I think again, thank you so much, the District Magistrate of Almora, for giving me this opportunity, and as well as APEC News Network for inviting me. So out here, I would kind of give you a very different, outlook of what we are working on, and how it can be done. So when we talk about redefining livelihood and ensuring sustainable agriculture, I really, and of course, since it is a COSI summit, I'm really looking at it from the Himalayan perspective. And I would like to echo, our Honorable Prime Minister's vision of making Atmanirbhar Bharat, waste to wealth, generating employment in the mountains and its social upliftment. So on that sector, we are actually working on many different aspects here at IIT Kanpur. And first is kind of redefining the livelihood. And I would say that, pine tree, last time when I went to Almora for vacation, I saw these beautiful pine trees, which are actually an invasive species. I saw the fire lines. So can we make anything out of those pine trees? And of course, I'm not talking about cutting down trees. I'm talking about kind of the waste product of lumber yards. We required the green woods of the lumber yard, which is the waste product of the pine tree. And then we realized that can we make filters to make the pine trees kind of turn the waste product of those pine tree to make filters. And actually we did it. And we saw that those pine tree branches can actually remove 99.99% of the biological contaminant, from morning. And even in today's session, we are hearing again and again about this holistic approach of looking at both the quality as well as the quantity. So can we do something out here from the Almora, which is actually the raw materials are there, the fire lines are there, where I see trees, fallen trees. So can we make use of them? And that's perfect. And to be very honest, we are working on this with MIT, and we have taken this technology from Uttarakhand to the each and every slums of India, in Bombay, in Delhi, to make these very cost-effective filters. So my vision is kind of putting Almora on the national. Of course, it is there in the national map as a top tourist destination. But can we can we redefine the livelihood? Kind of a social upliftment of the mountain people. Creating industry, I'm already in touch with several district administration of Uttarakhand. So I think that's one aspect when I see redefining livelihood. And the second aspect, I think there are so many technological advancements. We are working again and again. And that's mostly why unfortunately I cannot share my screen. It's very unfortunate, but we have a real-time hydrometeorological observatory in in Devaprag, where we are monitoring both the Alaknanda and the Bhagirathi River and all these are all real-time data transmission systems, where out here we can actually get the data of water level, of water quality. And so that's a mode. Those are mostly the R&D part. This is funded by the Ministry of Earth Sciences. And and that way we can actually, you're talking about more on the kind of looking at the hydrological aspect of it, and ultimately we come and we hear it again and again. It is the water management that needs to be done. IoT based water management, smart real-time water management. Because as UP Singh sir was saying in the morning, if you remember, when we say the river is polluted, it's also a function of the water in it. So the more the water, the pollutants will get diluted, as simple as that. So at essentially, what is required is real-time IoT-based, water management practices, and that's we are actively working on with several funded projects from Department of Science and Technology, Science Education Research Board, Intel. But coming from waste, I think IIT Kanpur, and I'm also the coordinator in the leading the Center of Technology for Sustainable Development at IIT Kanpur. Where we can work on a plethora of subjects from looking at the hydrological, the mass balance of water, basically essentially the water management, turning the waste to wealth in the districts, making employment, which is a very big issues in the mountain. Of course, I'm not from the administration background, but I assume that there are very few big industries there. And we are also talking to district administration of Uttarakhand, several of the industries. So can we actually make those pine filters, which are extremely low cost, less than 50 paisa per filter, which actually ultimately will serve the poor and kind of make this dream of Atmanirbhar Bharat and Make in India initiative successful by producing potable water to each and every household in India. And to be honest, Almora can be the face, Ranikhet can be the face, because I see a lot of pine trees there. And again, you don't have to cut down the pine trees. It is just the waste product of the pine trees. You just have to have access to green wood and the branches. So I think said so, I would, I would like to end because we are running really short of time. I would let other speakers to speak and kind of take it forward.
Thank you very much, Mr. Indra Sen, for taking us through the technology which you have mentioned about the pine trees back in Almora. Now, I would request the joint magistrate with the Ranikhet Almora, Ms. Apurva Pandey, to please put forward, share your perspective on redefining the livelihood and agriculture on labor.
Good afternoon, everyone. I hope I'm audible.
Yes, you are.
Good afternoon, everyone. It has been a wonderful summit since morning, and we are hearing excellent stuff from experts, and there's so much to learn and so much that can be done. I will be bringing in front of you the Kunjigar River Rejuvenation Project that has been started off in Ranikhet just 2 months back. And being the joint magistrate of Ranikhet, I have also joined quite recently, but the entire project fascinates me, and I feel extremely privileged to be a part of this project. The Kunjigar River Rejuvenation Project is also the child of the Kosi Rejuvenation Project, based on the same concept, based on the academic brilliance of the very same people, the very same academic luminaries, and the very same administrative structure. To begin with, I would like to mention what Professor Rawat also mentioned in the morning session, that earlier the Naulas and the Dharas used to be the lifelines of our hills. And slowly and steadily we moved on to different other modes of water. We as we made a descent to hand pumps and tube wells, we also saw descending water levels. And we saw our perennial rivers turning seasonal, our seasonal rivers dying. And now with the climate change phenomena, there is lesser rainfall. The snowfall seasons are shorter. The minimum temperatures are larger than what they used to be 20 years back, 50 years back. So, and unfortunately, the focus on water distribution has been very skewed, and not just here, but all over the country. And for a very long time, our focus when we talk about water distribution has been on this frantic search for new sources of water as the old ones die. So we we install pipelines, we find a new source, we exploit to the maximum, and once we are done with it, we move on to new sources of water without our water distribution pattern once wondering or once making an effort over rejuvenating what we have lost, or rejuvenating the river systems that we exploited for our day-to-day needs. So what makes the Kosi Rejuvenation Project and the Kunjigar River Rejuvenation Project an extraordinary and a very unique one is the fact that it focuses on rejuvenating entire river systems by bringing back to life every little stream, by bringing back to life the dying groundwater, by bringing back to life our drying water tables and our aquifers. So that's what makes it very interesting and a very unique project. When we talk about livelihood, when we talk about sustainable agriculture, it is very important to understand at the very outset that the loss of water, the water problem cannot just be seen as a water problem. It has tremendous socio-economic dimensions. It has direct impact on agricultural productivity and food security as our rivers die and our water tables retreat. And the dying of water resources result in loss of potable water opportunities, result in loss of water for sanitation purposes, for cooking, for cleaning, and there's a direct deterioration in the quality of human life. But one thing that we consistently ignore is the gender dimension that is associated with the water problem. As a new officer trainee, I walked into a village and I was met with some men, including the village headman. And these people walked me up to the village, and we talked about the various problems the village faced. We talked about their crops. We talked about how they were being destroyed by animals, by pigs and by monkeys. We talked about the education of their children. We talked about how there haven't been rains. We talked about a lot of other things. But there was no mention of the problem of water that the village had been getting water for only 1 hour for the last 1 month. And when I went to the river and I asked to meet up with the women of the village who had gone to the fields to work, and when these women were brought there, the first thing they said कि मैडम पानी नहीं आता, बड़ी मुश्किल है, पानी की बड़ी दिक्कत है. I was surprised as to how come the first thing that the women said was the water issue, because unfortunately the water issue affects women way more than it affects men, because it is these women who are walking kilometers and kilometers and going and fetching that water, which not only affects their health but also directly impacts their leisure time, impacts the time that they could have put to more productive pursuits, and a lot of other things. So rejuvenating our rivers and rejuvenating our water resources is not just about rejuvenating these rivers, but also rejuvenating and emancipating these women and giving them their time back, giving these young girls who could have gone to school their time back. Moving on, I would like to introduce the Kunjgar River Rejuvenation Project. It is based very much on the Kosi River Rejuvenation Project, which has been discussed in vast detail in the morning sessions. The Kunjgar River originates at Binsar Mahadev and it meets the Kosi River at Bhujan near Kherna. And it has a catchment area of 98.72 square kilometers. And most of this area is, a large percentage of this catchment area is agricultural. So the Kunjgar River Rejuvenation Project identifies 9 recharge zones. 9 recharge zones have been identified. These have been GIS mapped, and specific sites have been identified where biological and mechanical treatments will be undertaken in order to improve the intake of water by the ground and to rejuvenate the system. The mechanical treatments that will be undertaken include trenches, infiltration holes, ponds, check dams, tanks. How this affects the river system has been very well elaborated by Dr. Rawat, by DM sir, by CDO sir in the earlier sessions. And the biological treatments that we are going to undertake is grass, trees, local vegetation, and so on. There are 9 recharge areas that have been identified along with the cooperation with the local communities, and specific targets have been allocated to each recharge area. There is a fixed number of trees that are supposed to be planted. There is a fixed number of infiltration holes. These targets have already been set up, and for each target, the achievements are being tracked alongside. Talking of livelihood generation, this entire project becomes very crucial because MG Narega is used for developing recharge pits, the chal khals, the check dams. So it provides direct employment. There are no additional funds sought. And as DM sir specified in the morning also, that the Kosi Rejuvenation Project has directly led to creation of additional man-days. And we are hoping the same kind of phenomena to occur in the Kunjgar River Rejuvenation Project also. we know that Indians in the mountainous areas are dependent on spring water and river water, not only for their domestic needs, but also for their livelihood needs. So in the long run, once if this project turns out the way it has been envisaged, we expect that in the coming 5 or 10 years, it will also have indirect livelihood generation in the form of better agriculture, in the form of tourism opportunities, in the form of fisheries, and so on and so forth. uh, uh, the most unique thing that I find about this entire project is that it is a very careful nudge towards sustainable practices. We all understand somewhere the importance of sustainable practices, but it is very difficult to thrust the idea of practicing a sustainable life on people. And the way it has to be achieved is through a very careful and planned nudge. The Kosi River Rejuvenation Project and the Kushgar River Rejuvenation Project both focus on this particular nudge. For years, during ancient times, people identified with their water, with their catchment area. They saw it as their water, our area, our lands. But as pipelines emerged, and water from one area was lifted and sent to another village somewhere kilometers away, this concept of our water, our well, our lands, this sort of started fading. And as the sense of ownership faded, the dedication towards sustainable practices, living a sustainable life also faded. So the project at its very center sees the need of community involvement and propelling that sense of ownership among people. uh, and that is why the Kojgar River Rejuvenation Project was launched on Harela with a massive plantation drive. For those who don't know, Harela is a Kumauni festival where where we celebrate the sowing season, the coming of the monsoons. So Harela has always been linked culturally with the idea of plantation. But uh, coupling Harela with this entire project led to massive plantation, so that every whatever plantation we did, sorry. So that whatever plantation we did during whatever targets we had set for our plantations for the Kunjgar River Rejuvenation Project were far exceeded, and that was a wonderful experience. So the idea of linking cultural sentiments, the idea of involving people, the idea of introducing that sense of ownership in people, that plays a very, very crucial role. And that plays a very crucial role. So the Kunjgar River Rejuvenation Project involves women, involves children, involves community leaders. All the micro plans that we have made, the micro plans that have been developed with the involvement of women and children and community leaders, of the pradhans, of the Gram Vikas Adhikaris, the BDOs, and people who know this area from the very beginning. Of course, there is academic input, there is brilliant academic input, there is brilliant academic support, brilliant institutional support, brilliant administrative support. But what makes and drives this movement, what makes it a Jan Andolan, is the fact that people associate with this entire movement, is the fact that people see it as their own. And in the morning session, I was going through the comments, and a certain Mr. Maheshwari had said that there was this project in Sydney where people would be called river keepers and they would take care of their rivers. So that is exactly what we are today. Today, in the district of Almora, each one of us associated with this project and everybody living here, I think all of us are river keepers. All of us are Kosi keepers, and all of us are Kunjgar keepers. And these rivers belong to us, and we feel that sense of belonging. Uh, the way ahead for Kunjgar also involves, certain model villages that we plan to develop. We plan to develop model nurseries. So we are identifying areas for it, and we are identifying people we can work with. So that is most of what I wanted to say. And I'm really grateful for the opportunity provided to me to be here, to listen to everyone, most importantly, contribute my ideas to this entire summit. I'm extremely grateful to our district magistrate, sir, and for this opportunity. And very, very thankful to everybody in the panel who has given their brilliant insights. And I hope that we can take the Kunjgar River Rejuvenation Project to new heights. It has just begun, and I hope with everyone's support we can do a great job at it. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Ms. Apurva Pandey, for sharing us how the river rejuvenation is not just related to water or river, but it has a larger dimension with a socio-economic aspect to it. Now, I would request Mr. Mahatim Yadav, who's the Divisional Forest Officer with Almora, to please share your insights regarding the rejuvenation of water and agriculture.
Namaskar, myself Mahatim Yadav, and I am posted as the Divisional Forest Officer in Almora. Being a forest officer and from Forest Department, I will be basically focusing on how forest is related to these livelihoods and sustainable agriculture. As we all know that the river basins and the areas around the rivers have been the areas where our earliest civilizations emerged, be it Indus River or Nile River or any other river. However, in modern times, we need to see that that the livelihood aspirations of the people have changed drastically. I will be focusing my discussion on the two districts here, Nainital and Almora, because my first posting was in Nainital district, and what I found was that the river was not just limited to providing water to the people. However, in fact, in Haldwani district, Haldwani Tehsil, where I was earlier posted, I found that the major economic activity linked to the river was the mining of the stone, mining of the gravel and sand. And in fact, this has been the situation all across Nainital, be it Gola River, Nandor River, Sarda, in fact, Kosi, Tapka, other rivers are also present here. So we need to understand that in 2020, the aspirations of the people have increased greatly, and in the same tune, whenever we plan the livelihood opportunities for the people through any government program or any other collaborative program, we need to understand this thing that our livelihood programs should not be just for the sustenance of the people. In fact, this agricultural activity, this is also not limited to this just sustenance agriculture. In fact, it has the today's farmer has much bigger aspirations than the farmers of the old times. And our economic activities are no more limited to the primary sector activities like farming or fisheries. In fact, the today's farmer has greater aspirations. Next, as Mr. Indra Sen from the IIT Kanpur discussed about the pine trees, pine needles, and projects associated with that. So any project related to the pine trees or such trees should be in tune with the socio-economic situation in Uttarakhand and Almora specifically. We need to consider that the population density in Almora is very low, and the literacy rate is very high. So whatever project we plan, because this has been the case earlier also, that there were plans to prepare briquettes of the pine needles, and there were plans to prepare handicraft of the pine needles. However, they could not take off because the per capita income generated because of these projects were not as high as it could compete with other livelihood opportunities. We need to see that there are several other livelihood opportunities also in the market, and so there is tough competition with those opportunities. So whatever we plan, we need to take in consideration the Himalayan ecology, the Himalayan limitations, because it is very difficult to transport any good from one place to another. There is the population density is also very low, and the people are highly educated here, so they will take up any project or any activity only when it is lucrative compared to other activities. Next, I would like to discuss a bit about the dependence of the forests on the livelihood and agriculture in general. Firstly, I would like to discuss the positive aspects, because there are certain negative impacts also, aspects also. Regarding positivity, this whole discussion was related to the river rejuvenation and water availability. Obviously, our forests, they are the storehouse of the water. They are the source of the springs and the aquifers, and they provide fuel and fodder in great quantity to the villagers and the farming community in general. Further, the forests act as gene pool storage for the wild relatives of our crops. However, there is a negative linkage also to the forest in modern times. For example, especially in context of Uttarakhand and Himachal, we see that there is a lot of negative impact of the wild animals on the farming community, be it the leopard or wild boar or the monkeys. So the farmers here in the hills are facing a lot of problem due to these wild animals. So if we talk about sustainable agriculture, we need to consider these factors also. That the agricultural policies, the policies which talk about, which focus on the sustainable agriculture, they must include these components. That how do we manage, how do we handle the problem of the wild animals raiding the crops of the farmers. And finally, I would like to conclude by discussing a bit about the future, how we can move towards sustainable agriculture. Firstly, we need to reduce the dependence on the chemicals, because in the end they fall in our rivers and they pollute them. Then we need to consolidate our land holdings in the hills, because as I earlier pointed out, that the modern agriculture cannot be just for sustenance of the farmer. It needs to fulfill the modern aspirations of the farmer also. Hence, we need to increase or we need to consolidate the land holdings. Thirdly, we need to promote the horticulture. Horticulture of the means basically raising fruit crops or other crops which are in tune with the Himalayan climate, and focusing on the commercial crops. And as I earlier pointed out, that whatever policy we make, it must focus on the solving the issue of the wild animals. And with this, I thank everyone present here, District Administration Almora also, and all the participants in this panel discussion. I would like to conclude my discussion that the forests, they have been always instrumental in providing resources to the humankind, as well as to all the living beings on the earth, be it water, be it fuel, fodder, be it oxygen. In fact, they are also very important in conserving the soil also. Hence, the engagement of the forest department in general is also very instrumental in designing and developing the policies for sustainable agriculture in general. Thanks.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mahathir, for sharing your perspective. We had an amazing session. We had the perspective from the Government of India, Mr. G. Asok Kumar, who's Additional Director, how the National Water Mission is supporting the rejuvenation of river, and also how it's affecting the livelihood of the farmers. And we also had the perspective from the Embassy of Israel by Mr. Dan Alluf. Thank you so much. And also Mr. Indra Sen from the IIT Kanpur, from the Department of Earth Sciences. Thank you very much, Mr. Indra Sen. And also by Dr. Deepshikha from the Embassy or Royal Danish Embassy. And of course, the perspective from Apurva Pandey, Joint Magistrate, Ranikhet from Almora, and also Mr. Mahathir Yadav, the Divisional Forest Officer of Almora. Thank you very much for putting forward your perspective. And with this, we would end the second panel discussion. And please join us. I would also thank all the participants and the audience who have joined us through various platforms, including the social media platforms, YouTube, Facebook, through this live streaming. Thank you very much. Please join us in the next panel session with many speakers from across the country. Thank you very much.